Hello friends, my name is Marines, and today I'll be reviewing the Fairyland series by Catherynne and Valente. I have been mentioning this series since I first started my channel. I think in the first 5 videos that I ever made on this channel, I mentioned the Fairyland series in 3 of them. It was in April of 2015 that I first mentioned my intention of doing a full series review on the series, and here I am 19 months later finally making good on that promise. I first read The Girl Who Circumnavigated Fairyland in a Ship of Her Own Making, the first book in the Fairyland series, when I joined an in real life book club. It's a YA book club that I'm still attending, and we have monthly meetings and whatnot. And when I joined, this was the first book that the organizer had picked as kind of the introduction to this book club. I had never heard anything about it. I went into it pretty blindly and I felt instantly in love. This is a middle grade fantasy book, and the premise of it is pretty simple. It's your basic girl gets whisked away to a fairyland where there is an evil queen ruling. But everything that happens to fill this series out, the characters, the details, the land, the magic, is just beautiful and beautifully written. I strongly believe that this series is less about the plot progression and more about the exploration and celebration of language and wordplay and wit. It's the kind of writing that you read and that you would describe as delicious. In one of my early written reviews for this series, I write about it this way: these are words that I wish I could internalize and instantly memorize, but they are also words I wish I could display and show off. These are words that you read and that you wish you had written yourself. For as much as I love the characters in the setting and I enjoy the plot progression, I truly believe it is the writing that makes the series worth experiencing, and it makes it so amazing to revisit. Valente's writing is lush and it's full of rhythm and description. It's smart and it takes attention, not because it is overly complex, but because it's just kind of bursting at the seams. I was constantly highlighting and marking passages, either because I found a line that simply conveyed one of life's complexities, or it was something that was deliciously quotable and shareable. This is certainly not the series for somebody who shies away from description. This is not Jane Eyre. Jane Eyre is another book that I love that I also think is very description heavy, but in that book you can almost skip across the descriptions when she starts getting into describing her dreams or into the tapestries or into the house. You can kind of jump over that section to go and find the meat of the plot and the action. That's not the way that Fairyland is written. There is nothing really you can skip to find the meat of it, because the plot is so interwoven into these descriptions, into these characters, and into basically moving from one thing to the next with almost no feeling of urgency or no thread. It's just all of the beauty and all of what is offered to the reader is found within these descriptions. So if that is not something that you want to encounter, you're not going to find a lot of value here in the series. Fairyland is all the best bits of whimsy and oddities and adventure with what I would call as an almost dark undertone. It's ironic that our first description of our main character, September, is as almost heartless, the way that children are heartless, because as September grows up and as we hear her journey of gaining this heart, and the more time that she spends in Fairyland, the more it becomes clear to us as a reader that it is Fairyland that is really the heartless character or setting in this case. It is full of unforgiving characters and lessons hard learned and victories hard won. Fairyland is single-minded in its pursuit of a good story, whether that's uprooting children and bringing them to this land and sending them back when it's through with them, or relocating its capital city, Pandemonium. One of the aspects of Fairyland is that its capital city moves. Its capital city finds where the story is, and that's where its city can be found. September's story is full of heartbreak and of growing up. When we first meet September, her father is serving in a war and her mother is working, as women have been called to do since all the men are fighting in the war. September is worried and she's sad and she's lonely, and it is then that she is called to Fairyland on this adventure. Though however loud and colorful her adventure ends up being in Fairyland, she's almost always carrying this sadness and this loneliness and this worry with her. As she grows up throughout the series, these worries change. How do you keep friends when you are both growing up? What makes a person who they are? How do you forgive someone for what they've done? How do you carry the scars of war or of travel or of adventure? While Valente's writing is full of life truths, whether from her or our narrator, I never found them to be too preachy, partly because it felt very grounded in her whimsy. You have this world of oddities, but then she kind of centers it and grounds it with just overall life truths, partly because the voice of the narrator is so strong. It doesn't seem as if Valente is trying to teach us anything, because the narrator, who is omniscient and is self-aware, she knows that she is the narrator of September's story, is teaching September and not us directly. I found the narrator utterly charming, and I loved her involvement in the story. The entire series is very self-aware. September and the other characters act in ways that make it seem like they know that they are in the story, and they do. September knows that she's been whisked away on this adventure, this Fairyland adventure, and she's very aware of that in the way that she acts and the way that she perceives things. They reference stories in this love letter to stories frequently throughout the series, and the author gives little nods to very well-known fairy tales. Over my year and a half of reading and rereading the entries in the series, I have fallen in love with the characters. Our protagonist is September, as I mentioned, and she's described as a somewhat irascible and slightly heartless 12-year-old at the onset of the series. On first read, I found that September was outshined by the supporting characters, but on reread, I really began to appreciate her more and more, especially as she grows up throughout the series. She's brave and no nonsense. I can't not appreciate a girl at the center of the story who takes after her mother and is good at fixing machines. She's our little engineer who is also very cunning. My heart breaks for her throughout several parts of the stories, especially when she's missing either one life or the other. She's either missing her parents or her friends. My heart breaks for her anytime throughout the series that she also realizes she has to do something alone. The supporting characters are all lovable and memorable. There's A through L, who is a wyverary. He's part wyvern and part library. One of the best things about Valente's world building to me is that things just are. It might be something that's frustrating to somebody else who's coming in who wants a little more explanation behind the mechanics of the world, but I loved it because I thought it allowed her characters and her writing to shine. The fact that we are just kind of taking everything as it is, you know, it's a magical land, things are crazy, accept it for what it is, and truly appreciate what else she's creating with characters and story. You kind of just start to accept everything that she throws at you, whether that's a city that moves, or a dodo that freezes time, or a part library, part wyvern, child of a wyvern who fell in love with a library and now looks like a wyvern but can quote or reference anything that's in an encyclopedia, starting with the letters A through L. He's loving and sensitive, and if this whole series is a love letter to language, A through L is here representing libraries and stories. Saturday is a Marid, and he is a sea-dwelling djinn. He's mysterious and quiet, but can also be fierce and fun, and he's everything that you know about the sea personified. Apart from those two who are September's main companions, you have so many other characters like a lamp who literally made me cry, a soap golem whose selflessness and commitment will leave you breathless, an evil queen who you never love but you sometimes don't quite hate, and so many more that I could fill an entire video just talking about the characters found within this series. As with all things, I will say that the series is not perfect, or it probably is not for you if you don't really want to invest time into a series where you have to sink your teeth into description heavy prose. It also won't be for you if you need a very solid plot, as September's plot sometimes gets a little fuzzy, especially through the middle as she goes from adventure to adventure. For me personally, these complaints were drops in the pan because they were never really the focus of the story. The first book, The Girl Who Circumnavigated Fairyland in a Ship of Her Own Making, is hands down my favorite from start to finish. The second, The Girl Who Fell Beneath Fairyland and Led the Revels There, is my second favorite, in a pretty close second. This book just impressed me with its line of continuity, something that is almost a throwaway thing that happens in all of September's adventures in the first book comes back to haunt her in the second book. This one also really hit and feels home for me because September has to face darkness and loneliness and the consequences of her actions pretty much alone. The third book is The Girl Who Soared Over Fairyland and Cut the Moon in Two. My favorite part of this one was the exploration of friendships and what happens when people begin to grow apart. This book very smartly addresses how we can sometimes feel betrayed by people whose stories take them further away from us. Of all the books, however, I think this is the one that has the fuzziest plot. I have read it multiple times now, and I know what happens and I get what happens, but I'm not entirely sure how all of the action in this book ties to the final thing that happens. sense. So I love it for what it says through its characters, but definitely the fuzziest plot is in this one. The fourth book, The Boy Who Lost Fairyland, seemingly takes a break from the story that we know and love to follow a changeling, a troll, who is dropped in the human world when a human was dropped in Fairyland. The first half of this book is pure genius as Hawthorne tries to acclimate to the human life, and he starts to do so by writing himself rules on how he should behave and how things work, and it's such beautiful tongue-in-cheek description of growing up, of school, of the rules of human life, of what is considered normal. It is hilarious. I loved it so very much. That said, this one is my least favorite in the series because after the first half of the book, you end up going to another location and it almost felt like two stories in one, all smushed together, and things happen so quickly just to get it over with in this one book that it felt way too rushed to me. It really is unfortunate because I loved the beginning of this book and everything that happens was very exciting. I think it might have some of the most exciting plot points, but it just tried to do them too quickly. The final book was The Girl Who Raced Fairyland All the Way Home, and this was everything that an ending should be. It's action-packed and full of characters that we've met and loved previously. It feels like this is what September, now 17 in this book, was building towards all along. And yet it ends in a way that I wasn't quite expecting. I rated every book except for the fourth one 5 stars, and I will give this entire series an overall rating of 5 stars. It is definitely a favorite, and it's one that I will read over and over again. It's a book that I look forward to sharing with my nieces and any future hypothetical children. I'm not even sure that this is everything that I wanted to say about this exceptionally crafted series. I grew up on Narnia, and fantasy has always been one of my favorite and most read genres. This combines my love of fantasy, of portal fantasy specifically, with my love of stories and language, and for that it has become one of my favorites of all time. To end, and as I enjoy doing after a full series review, I would love to do a giveaway of these books. I'm giving away all 5 books in paperback form from Book Depository. This is going to be very simple. In order to enter the giveaway, you must 1. Be subscribed in some way that I can verify, 2. Be in a place where Book Depository will ship, 3. Be willing and able and allowed to share your address with me, 4. Leave me a comment down below letting me know that you would like to enter into this giveaway. Whether or not you are entering, I hope you will take the time to chat with me about the series down below. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you guys soon. So there are things that I dislike enough, like A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas, that people liking it is just like kind of mind-boggling to me. It's not one of those things that you can see like, oh, I see why people like it. ACOTAR is not that for me at all. I don't understand why people like it at all, no matter how much they try to explain it to me. This is on the opposite extreme, that I love this so much that I feel free to recommend it, because even if nobody else loves it, I'll be okay with that. I love it that much. I don't care if anybody else likes it. This is for me.